Hey guys, welcome back to Natural Academy. I'm Dr. Chell, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how to drop inflammation fast. And the answer is actually in the title. It is through fasting. So there's obviously many ways to decrease inflammation in the body, but probably the most rapid way that I'm aware of is fasting. Now, just a quick note on inflammation. Inflammation is not always bad. So inflammation is our body's innate process of trying to heal a problem. So the goal isn't necessarily to just get rid of inflammation, is to get rid of whatever's causing inflammation in the first place. So there's a lot of blame today on chronic inflammation, how it's causing all these diseases. That's kind of a half truth. Of course, it's contributing to those diseases, but it's not the root cause. So inflammation is actually great because it's our body trying to fix the problem. So all we want to do is support the body in its natural healing process so the inflammation can resolve. And that's what we're doing with fasting, is we're helping the body become better able to resolve that inflammation. So we're going to talk first about some of the benefits of a fast. So I'm going to talk mostly about a 24 to 36 hour fast. There's obviously, you can go much longer than that, you can do shorter, but this is kind of the sweet spot, and it's also something that is approachable and safe for most people to do. So it's kind of that, that balance of where you're going to get the most benefit, but also not have to put in the most effort. Whereas something like a 3 or 5 day water fast is very challenging. There's a lot more considerations. So this is much more approachable for most people. So the first major benefit is that you're going to get digestive rest. We're used to eating, most of us all day. So from the moment we wake up, we have a snack or breakfast, and then, maybe a snack in between our breakfast and lunch. We're having dinner, maybe a nighttime snack. And it's a lot of work for our body to digest. A lot of people don't realize how energetically expensive it is to digest food. So not only the mechanical chewing, but also to produce stomach acid is very energetically expensive. For your liver to be producing bile, for your pancreas to be producing all of the enzymes, for your small intestines to be performing that function. So it costs a lot of energy, right? But what happens when we give ourselves a bit of a rest from digestion, suddenly we have all this excess energy to do other things, so to heal our body. And most of us don't really give ourselves that opportunity. Back in the day, in ancestral times, we didn't have the luxury of just opening up a fridge first thing in the morning and having all this availability to food. We had to go through these periods of scarcity, and naturally we would have fasting built into our lives without even having to think about it. But now it's just more of a intentional decision that we have to make, and of course it's not going to be suitable for everyone, but for most people, I would say this is going to be a good option. And to receive plenty of benefits. So the next thing is autophagy. Autophagy, if you break down the word, so auto means self, phagy means to eat. So basically what happens when you're going through an extended fasting period is that your body will start to eat and recycle some of the damaged or dysfunctional cells and proteins. So it's a pretty cool process. The body's basically saying, hey, we have this extra energy to do some cleanup work, and also maybe if we don't have the appropriate amino acids that we need, or we don't have the proteins coming in through food, how can we get creative to produce more of those for our body? So it's this natural process where you're going to break down the old dysfunctional damaged cells and things like your mitochondria, different organelles, and then repurpose whatever materials that we can salvage from that. So autophagy is one of the massive benefits. There's still a lot of debate as to how long you need to fast to get these benefits. There's probably a lot of nuance, probably depends on the person and other factors going on. But I think you're tapping into that at least to some degree during this type of fasting. Ketosis is another major benefit. Basically, what I call it here is anti-inflammatory fat burning. So what happens when you go into this fasting state for a certain period of time, you're obviously no longer taking in food from the outside. So what we have to do is learn how to tap into our own fat stores. Most people are surprised to realize that the average person has at least 30 days of energy stored in their own body via fat. So I'm not necessarily recommending this, but most people could probably fast for 30 days and survive off of that because you do have enough energy in your body. So basically what's happening when you cross that threshold, you've depleted all of your glycogen, so the stored glucose in your muscles and your liver. Then your body says, okay, where am I going to get this energy from? Then you start tapping into that fat. One of the byproducts of that when you're burning enough of your own fat is your body's going to produce something called ketones, which are an alternative energy source to glucose, or a lot of people just think of that as sugars. And there's many anti-inflammatory benefits to being in this ketotic state. Now, it's not necessarily beneficial to be doing that long term. There's some issues with that, but especially short term, getting into these ketotic states can be very beneficial, and they can help to reduce your inflammation levels. A lot of people actually notice within this time period, maybe a little bit more, or even going on a ketogenic diet for a few days, you can see the physical drop in inflammation because your body is shedding a lot of water. So you're getting rid of that, that puffiness. If you just generally are, looking or feeling kind of bloated, maybe your face is a little bit puffier than usual, that can drop very quickly just through getting into this state of ketosis. So it's a very tangible benefit that people notice. Another main thing is detoxification. So when you're in this fasted state, since you have more of that energy, what is your body going to do? It's going to try to clean up some of that crap. Maybe it hasn't had a chance to do that because you're constantly, putting in that crap. So once you have a bit of time, it's kind of like, say you're a hoarder and you just keep buying more stuff, you keep just grabbing more stuff, filling up your house. You're never going to get rid of that stuff. But once you take some time to pause and maybe you stop accumulating things and then you start to reflect, you realize, maybe I can get rid of some of the stuff. So the body's doing the same thing. It's going to upregulate certain liver enzymes so they can detoxify more effectively. Some of the other routes of elimination may be increased, so such as bowel movements, maybe sweating more. But that kind of depends on the person. It depends on the context. There is such thing as like a healing reaction, also known as a Herxheimer reaction, which typically won't happen with this length, but when you're fasting a little bit longer, your body says, okay, I need to really heal something. And through actually the process of inflammation, it's going to help to get rid of some stuff and, detox. So that's when people might feel, a little bit more crappy during certain periods. But generally that's only going to happen for during longer fasts rather. So you don't really have to worry about it too much during a 24 and 36 hour fast. And the last thing, which kind of ties into inflammation, is your discipline. So many of us are addicted to food, whether we realize it or not, and it can be very challenging to go 24 or 36 hours without food, and it requires a lot of willpower and mental fortitude and discipline. And that can translate into many other areas of your life. So a lot of people, when I tell them that I'm fasting right now, actually it's been almost 24 hours. A lot of people say, how do you do that? How don't you, bite your arm off? And, I've been doing it for a while, but also I've gained that muscle of discipline over time to know and, have the confidence that I can do this and actually feel great. I'm not suffering at all. So the more you do this, the more discipline you build, and then that translates into other areas. So maybe you have the confidence to do, a more intensive exercise plan, or to be more stringent with your diet, or whatever it is. So I do think that's a major benefit that is, in the long run, is also going to help to decrease inflammatory levels. Okay, so let's talk about how to implement this. So the practicalities. So how do you start fasting? Depends on where you're at, right? A lot of people can do a 24 to 36 hour fast right off the bat without issues. But some people, maybe if this is very daunting to you, or you have some other health issues, or you think it's going to be very challenging, then you may want to start with something like time restricted eating, which is basically just compressing your eating window to 12 hours or less. So that would be basically fasting for 12 hours or more. Somewhere around like the 12 to 16 hour range is going to be appropriate for most people. A lot of the research shows that just having that eating window within 12 hours has many metabolic benefits. And the average person is not eating within that window because they're having calories as soon as they wake up, and often right before they go to bed. So that feeding period ends up being more than 12 hours. So 12 hours or less. So basically that means, say you stop eating at 7 p.m., you're not going to eat the next day until 7 a.m. So that's pretty approachable for most people. And as that gets easy, you can increase the amount of time until you feel comfortable doing a bit of a longer fast. So there's no rush here, but your body will adapt much quicker than you think. So if you are concerned, start slow, work your way up to that. And basically, practically what we're doing, we're eliminating caloric food intake. There's a lot of different modified fasts. So you could do, like a fruit fast or a bone broth fast or a juice fast. Those things are great, and I think there's a lot of benefit to them. But honestly, I feel like you get the best benefits from a water fast across the board. Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging, but sometimes, I take that back actually. Sometimes I find that water fasting can be easier than like restricting myself with just like, some juices here and there, giving myself like just a little bit of calories, but not real food. It's almost easier for me psychologically and practically just to do a water fast. But everyone's individual, everyone's different, and maybe a modified fast is better for you. But generally what I'm talking about here is just water fast. So we're taking in 0 or very limited calories, and you're going to get many benefits that way. The other thing is to make sure that you're staying hydrated. So this is very important, especially when your body is upregulating some of its detox capacities and is wanting to focus on healing. Your body needs water. So what you want to do is make sure that you're staying well hydrated, maybe even drinking a little bit more than what your thirst calls for. But I notice personally I get much more thirsty when I'm water fasting, and it also just helps to keep you a little bit more satiated as well. So stay well hydrated, plenty of water, clean filtered water. Also, herbal tea is great. I'm a big fan of certain herbal teas. So some of my favorites are things like kidney tonics, such as nettle. Cleavers is another good one for your lymphatic system. Burdock, dandelion, sarsaparilla. Those are great herbs to help support your detox pathways. And it also just helps to switch things up, just to have a little bit of flavor. So look into some different, detox-friendly herbs if you like to drink herbal teas. They're not, requirements, but I do think they actually facilitate the fasting process and give you additional benefits. The other thing is making sure that you have some electrolytes. Generally with a shorter fast, this isn't as big of an issue. If you were exercising, which I don't necessarily recommend doing like high intensity exercise unless you're well adapted to that, that would be more of a consideration to be adding salt in. But for some people, they just notice, they feel better with a little bit of salt in the water, or maybe some lemon juice just to provide some electrolytes. But generally, I would say for a shorter fast like this, it's not going to be as big of an issue. It's more so when you're doing multi-day fasting, but you really want to pay attention to electrolytes and maybe supplement with some additional ones. But again, everyone's different, so you got to experiment. I do recommend gentle exercise. So just moving your body in general, walking is great. Doing some stretching is great. I'm a big fan of Qigong or Tai Chi, yoga, those types of things. So just, being gentle with yourself. If you have the energy and you want to do something harder, that's great. I generally wouldn't recommend doing like a very high intensity exercise early in the day and then continuing to fast for the rest of the day. If you're going to do something higher intensity, do it in closer proximity to when you're going to break that fast. I think that makes the most sense. So, but basically with exercise, you're moving your body, you're helping the lymphatic system drain. It also helps as an appetite suppressant. So especially if you're feeling hungry, just have a glass of water, go for a walk. Usually that helps quite a bit. And I should also say, I almost forgot my secret recommendation. One thing that really helps in terms of liquids is having some carbonated water. So getting like a nice mineral water and just having that, sipping that can also help you feel more full because the carbonation almost makes it feel like your stomach is full to some degree. So if you enjoy that, personally it helps me quite a bit in terms of hunger. General exercise, just moving your body but not overdoing it. I think it's important to keep busy, but not too busy. You want to allow yourself some time for rest, but when you're just going about your day-to-day, like if you have a normal work day and you're fasting, you may not even notice. There's going to be a few times that you do feel hungry naturally, but you'll get distracted. You'll be, doing your work. Maybe you're taking your dog for a walk or going to the gym, doing some exercise, light exercise. Those things do help to pass the time, and before you know it, the 24 or 36 hours is up. So make sure you're staying busy, but also you don't want to overdo it. So you want to allow yourself some rest, especially if you feel, sometimes when you're fasting, you go through these periods of feeling a little less energized, like you just want to lie down for a bit. So I try to not overschedule myself on those days. Sometimes it just happens, but generally I try to keep myself busy, but not too busy, also allowing for some of that rest so your body can recover. That's a much more important consideration during longer fasts. You definitely want to be resting because once you get into day 2, 3, 4, 5, then sometimes your body physically needs rest. So, but again, shorter fasts. That's why I like these because you don't really have to worry too much. You're going to survive 24 hours for sure. 36 is a little bit psychologically more challenging because you're not eating for that entire day, and then not until the next morning typically. So you're going like that full entire from waking to sleeping one day without eating, and that can be hard. So you could probably start out with a 24-hour fast unless you're feeling great, and then go on from there. And the last thing is just consistency. So one fast, you're gonna get some good benefits, but doing this cumulatively, you're gonna get far more benefits. You just wanna make sure you're not overdoing it. So I wouldn't recommend for some people, they can do alternate day 24-hour fast. For me, that would be way too much. And I wouldn't recommend that to 95% of people. But doing this once a week, or maybe once every other week, or maybe monthly, I think that'd be an appropriate amount of fasting, depending on your situation. So for me, I'm a pretty lean, skinny guy. I probably don't need to do this weekly, but maybe once every other week or once a month would be great. If you have a lot of excess weight you want to get rid of, then weekly you're probably going to be fine. So just be consistent. You'll start to see the benefits over time. I think there's a reason why you see consistent fasting practices over many different religious and spiritual groups, because they notice the benefits, not just physically but also spiritually. That's another major benefit, is that a lot of people feel a lot more connected to source or spirit or God or whatever it is. So that's an additional benefit as well. But from a physical perspective, you're going to get plenty of benefits. Again, this may not be suitable for everyone. Obviously, if you're a newborn or an infant, if you're watching this video, then don't fast. If you are pregnant or breastfeeding, probably not a good idea. If you're extremely underweight, maybe you have a history of eating disorders, not great. Also certain medications, if you're taking insulin or something that's going to mess up your blood sugar, just use your common sense. So I'm not saying that this is applicable to everyone, but for most people, I do believe they can benefit from this type of fasting. All right, well, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn more, you can check out naturacademy.com. There I have high quality blue blocking glasses, as well as Dr. Chell's Botanical Brews, my new herbal line. And what would actually be great for fasting is my Water Renew tea. Maybe the liver tincture as well, the liver sauce tincture. But Water Renew tea would be excellent. That's what I use quite a bit. But I like to switch it up. There's plenty of great herbs out there that can support the fasting process. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, maybe you want to explore some fasting, you have some questions, or you want to embark on a longer fast, I would definitely recommend some medical supervision for that. And you can go to lakesidennaturopathic.com. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.